Can I just ask you a question about something you said? You said when you first looked at putting your business together and raising $1 million, wasn't it? That you were asked, well, has anyone ever done this? And you thought, gosh, no, actually, maybe this is a bad idea. I mean, do you think that naivety, in a sense, was a good thing? Because had you known the risk, you may not have done it. And therefore, perhaps it's good, actually, to be a little wide-eyed and naive.
I love that question, actually, which is why we're sort of oxymoronically in the British Library and talking about entrepreneurs. Because, actually, I do preach, in a strange way, that ignorance, had I known how hard it was going to be, I think I might well not have done it. And
this
the corollary to that...
This is a terrible lesson. You're saying don't research anything.
No, but actually,
you'll be scared.
I can be a little bit deep now for a second, because I think it is an important point. I remember going to a lovely gentleman who shared lots of data with me. He said, lastminute.com is never going to work because I set up late Gatwick, a shop in Gatwick, and it didn't work. And there was a man who knew too much. For very good reasons, he said it wasn't going to work. However, going back to Deborah's point, calculated risks is the essence. And actually, I can be glib about my ignorance, but I actually didn't start lastminute.com when I had the idea in '96 because I thought I was too ignorant. So I then went to get experience, but I still didn't know anything about travel.
Right, but there is a balance, you're saying. There is a balance about having a passion for an idea and having an informed opinion about how it should work. One thing, actually, Deborah, I was looking at, I think it was your website. It says Deborah is a born entrepreneur on your website. I thought, I mean, it's a good tagline and it sounds great. I wonder, though, it raises a bigger issue, though, doesn't it, if entrepreneurs are born? If there are a certain amount of people here who are just, tough luck, you're not a born entrepreneur and there's not much you can do about it, or can you make entrepreneurs? What is your actual view?
Do you know, the question I get asked most is what makes a great entrepreneur, and the truth of that, I get the sense that people want to hear me say A, B, C, D, bingo. That's it. And I don't think that's what it's about. It's about the right combination of many things, and they're not present in all entrepreneurs, but there are certain things that I actually do recognise. Be interested to hear other panellists, but that I do actually see in most entrepreneurs, and interestingly, they're characteristics. So they're not
an innate thing.
Yes, so these are not learned things. Now you can learn many things that can, you talk about research, and I talk about research about you can learn many things, but the ability to take risk, right. You have to at some day. You can do all the research in the world, but all of us will have at one stage said, we've got to stop gathering information, and we've got to, because you never know all the answers. I know enough, and now I'm going to go for it. So I think you've got to be able to take risk, and you've got to have good judgment. Now, good judgment can come from lots of knowledge. So you can improve your judgment by gathering data and thinking, how would I apply that, or hearing how other people have done that. But I do think certainly the ability to take risk, which is a characteristic, good judgment, which can be helped through knowledge. You can learn certain things. And who knows a non-competitive, successful entrepreneur, because they're all highly competitive, whether they're competing with somebody else or competing with themselves or whatever it is they want. When I say win, I don't mean the winning line, but I mean they want to, whatever it is that they want to achieve, they want to achieve it badly.
But let me bring Tom in on this point, because I thought part of the thrust of your campaign is the opposite of what Deborah's saying, is that there aren't innate things here that, everyone can do it. Now, that's not what Deborah's saying.
That's why they sat you and I next to each other, Tom.
Yes, indeed. And it's a paradox because, of course, I don't disagree with my chairman, who's a fellow dragon, who, like me, believes passionately, actually, that entrepreneurs can be made, that they're not born. And that's indeed one of the 5 myths that we're looking to shatter this week on each day of Global Entrepreneurship Week. But that was on Monday, Deborah. But
I've given you an opportunity here to shatter the myth that Deborah has now nicely set up for us.
I feel very, very passionate about this. Where I actually would agree with Deborah, and indeed Sir Alan Sugar, who's probably the biggest exponent at the moment of this notion of, look, entrepreneurs are born, that they are not made, is there is absolutely something in the psyche and the characteristics of entrepreneurs, and indeed lots of successful people in all walks of life, which you cannot pick up in a classroom. I failed spectacularly all of my qualifications at school at the age of 16. I grew up in local authority care in the Midlands, and here I am with a very distinguished panel, talking about the importance of enterprise and life chances and opportunities. And there is a backstory to everyone. There's something that gets them out of bed and motivates them. And I don't believe you can teach that in the classroom. But I absolutely object to this notion of you are defined in life by the bed you were born in or the postcode where you live. I think you are either fortuned by circumstance or a victim of circumstance.
But that wasn't what Deborah was saying, was it? She wasn't saying you're born
wasn't.
rich or anything. What she was saying, correct me if I'm wrong, was that there are that ability or wish to take a risk. It's nothing to do if you're rich or poor, or in fact, it could have the opposite effect. If you've had a very disadvantaged background, it could actually motivate you to take
but there's
risks.
something I think about in our British society, actually, where our culture does not encourage people who are from very disadvantaged backgrounds to think that they can do it. And that's why we've got twice as many young people in the States who do become entrepreneurs. And one of the things I really object to actually about Sir Alan's comment is, in a way, if someone that's come from a very deprived area of East London, it does sort of rather look, as he sits there now in his ermine as Lord Sugar, he's sort of saying to the community where he came from, look, you know what, I was born this way. Don't have the same ambition and aspiration that I've got to be successful. And that's what worries me slightly about that message, which is why we've gone big on that.
All right, Cath Kidston, yes.
I mean, there's just one thing here. I think the word entrepreneur, it's like, to me, when you have a business, you need a leader. And I guess I would call myself an entrepreneur in my business. I came up with the bigger idea. I've always got an eye on the broader sense of the business. I've learned along the way that I do like to understand risk, and I take a certain amount of risk, but I don't like gambling or the rest of it. But I think every entrepreneur is as good as their team. And I would say, it's probably a broad mix of you out there. I think that you need a yin and a yang in a business, and running a company. And I know when I started my business, the one thing that kept me in really good stead is feeling I didn't have the confidence on the business side of things because I'm slightly dyslexic, had all the ideas and everything, and I knew from the word go I needed an accountant. I wasn't going to be able to do my own VAT return. And there's maybe people here, I bet there's people here who are thinking of starting businesses together. There's always, often a business is, you have the business person and the creative person together, it works very well. And I just think there's so many different ways of approaching starting a business. You needn't be the person who's thinking up the big idea and, and all the rest of it. You can be just as important. I mean, my MD is just as important to my business as I am, and my team. It's so much about who I've been able to bring into place, and for me to understand my strengths and my weaknesses. And I think it's very important not to believe you can do absolutely everything.
Can I ask you a question also about... Sorry, yes.
Yeah, I completely agree in terms of team, but I'm going to pick you up on one thing, because I still believe you're the entrepreneur. Because in every team, you don't need a team full of entrepreneurs.
I understand that.
And what I think you did is that you had the vision, you knew what you wanted to do, but you also knew who you needed to help you achieve that vision, or help all of you achieve that vision. So I still think the entrepreneur bit, which is the bit that says, that's where I'm going, and I'm going to do it, still came down to you. That doesn't...
But I'm thinking the person who's second to me, or next to me is equally important. In my company, my MD has been equally important to me in that they've helped lay the plans, do all that. I can kind of look at the bigger picture, and I can look at the end product and the small detail, but I can't do the petty cash.
So are they an entrepreneur? Can I just ask, are they an entrepreneur? Would you consider your second in command an entrepreneur, or the FD?
I think they are to a degree, because they're a very creative thinking MD, and so they're not 100%. There's kind of different ways of achieving things. I don't think they're. I think, as you say, I probably think up the initial ideas and all the rest of it, but that's a bit of an iceberg syndrome. It's like all the workings that go on underneath are just as important. So when you look at the whole picture together, I would be nothing without the people who have helped me along the way.
Can I ask you a question about how you got here? Because it seems to me that a lot of entrepreneurs, Deborah comes to mind, has done a lot of different businesses, and indeed I'm sure a lot of people out here, I get the feeling, want to be entrepreneurs, and then they find a great idea. But it seems to me you came at it a different way. You're a designer, and you sort of almost had to be an entrepreneur to get your design out. Is that
Well, I mean,
fair?
I left school and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I come from a kind of background where my parents thought I would be married, have 2 children, and not work, really. And when I left school and said, what do you want to do? I thought, I have to do something artistic. I was good at art at school. What I hadn't realised, and there was no career sort of guidance in those days, is age 4, I'd emptied my mother's store cupboard in her bathroom, made a shop, and sold it back to her and her friends. I did quite well, so the next weekend
you made profit, didn't you?
I waited till the friends had had 2 drinks and realised they'd spent double the amount and then invited them in. You know, I was trading from a very early age, but I didn't know I could have a career as a shopkeeper. So what did I do? I went to work in a shop when I left school. I thought, why not earn £100 a week? You know, what's the point of university? It's more exams. I didn't see the attraction of that because no one explained. I mean, nowadays I would need to be a lot more qualified than I am. You know, it's different. But it's just, what I'm trying to say is you have to follow your gut instinct with this kind of thing.
But what I was trying to get at was, did you start a business just because you're passionate about your designs and that was a way of getting your designs out? Or did you specifically say, I like playing shop when I made a profit on my mum and her friends, and actually that's what I'd like to do, and I've got a ready-made product?
I thought of both. I got the 2 ideas to work together, because it's back to what you say about the calculated risk. And when I started my business, I had to have an alternative income stream. So I had the shop upstairs, and the shop took as much in a year as I took in 1 store on Saturday, if that makes sense. So we have 1 store that takes a huge amount of money, and on Saturday I had a record day. And that's exactly the turnover of the shop for the entire year, my first year. But I was running an interior design business in the basement because it paid the rent. Whenever I made some spare cash, I invested in the shop. So it kind of helps if you've got a day job. I didn't have funding, so I used my day job. And it took me 5 years before the business actually took off in the sense of products and all the rest of it.